I hear the words in my head. Now, people ask me, was it English Lug Fellas? I cannot put it into words. It's an experience-based thing. But the thought, the word, the phrase was, why are you carrying a gun? And I'm sitting there thinking, Rick, you're losing it. And I ignored it. And it was like they turned up the squelch. People call it mind speak, picture talk, or whatever. I ignored it for a second, and it was like the emphasis was cranked up 10 times, and the question came back again. Why are you carrying a gun? And that second time it went through my head, I knew they were talking to me. I knew I was being communicated to.
This is the Cryptid Creature Show. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Brian, my friend, tonight we're bringing Rick on, and Rick was on the documentary A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. He was the guy that actually had the mind speak encounter going on with the Bigfoots. Mm-hmm. So we're going to bring him on and talk about his experiences. I think he's had more than that, though, too, so I'm excited to bring him on and see what he's got to say. Are you ready to bring him on?
Yep, let's get him.
Rick, thanks for being here with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Hey, I enjoy talking about this subject, man. It's amazing. Not given to easy answers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think it's a bunch of hooey, and that's fine. I've gotten beyond trying to prove this to anybody. There's so much we don't know, but we think we know.
Right.
If that makes sense. In my 20 plus years of doing this, nothing surprises me anymore. I've had so many twists and turns. Nothing. I mean,
well, I didn't realize it when we started talking to you, but you were actually on A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I went back and watched that, and I was like, man, that's an amazing encounter you had. But before we get started and get into that, can you go back and give us a little bit of background about yourself and our listeners a little bit of background about yourself?
I was born and raised out on the West Coast, the land of fruits and nuts, in more ways than one. After college, and I can say that because I'm a native from there, okay? But after college, I moved to Texas, and I'm probably as close to a native Texan as you can get. My family was originally from Oklahoma and Arkansas. They moved out west, had us kids. I was raised on cornbread and gravy and bread and, all the good Southern stuff. Both parents were from, there. After college, well, let me back up. I hiked, camped, explored a lot of the Sierra Nevada mountains, some of which are very active. Yosemite National Park, all of the upper Sierras, the San Joaquin River and the Kings River. And I can truthfully say at that time, if they had been out there, I should have seen one. And, that's the opinion of a lot of people that are ignorant to how subtle, how tactical, and how smart these subjects are. If they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them under probably 99% of the time. The law of averages do catch up, and my heart goes out to people that think they're a Mother Goose, story or a fairy tale, and they're out there hunting or hiking, and by the law of averages or chances, they run into one face to face. It's got to be horrible PTSD, because even expecting them, and stuff, when you get close to these subjects, it's intense. I mean, very intense. It's almost like, the atmosphere is charged with electricity or something. It's just super, super overwhelming. And I'm not trying to even sound like I'm bragging or anything, but I've seen them enough that if I never see one again, I'm okay with that. My pleasure comes out of somebody having that aha moment where they look over at me and their eyes grow wide and big and they say, there's something out there, that's my joy. But anyway, after college, I moved to Texas. I was a aeronautics major trying to get on with the aerospace related industries there, or airline related. And the it was in the toilet. The industry is in the toilet. No chance of getting hired. I worked a little retail. I drove a truck. I was a fitter's helper. Just, a young guy trying to live and move on. And at some point, one of the guys I was going to church with said, "Hey, you ought to put your application in with the Houston Fire Department." And I said, "Man, I've never thought about being a fireman, but I visited, saw how there was camaraderie there at the station, excitement sometimes, just up and visit, shot pool with them and just talked and watched the whole thing. And I thought, well, this might not be too bad. So I put my application in, and about 6 months later, and through 1,800 applicants, I was one of the 60 that was accepted into the academy. It was a light bulb moment for me. I mean, I that's what I want to do. So 10 years and 2 promotions, I got into that slot it was a captain's rank. I got into that slot the last 12 years of my career, and I've been doing that ever since. I retired honorably. And full law enforcement. I went back to police academy. I've been to all 3 public safety trainings: paramedic, firefighter, and police. I've had all the academies and cross trained. And I left there, and for the last 20 plus years, I've worked as a licensed private investigator, doing fire and explosions. I know forensics. I know interviewing. I know taking statements, and I use that training. When I had my first moment, I don't know, some people, they just start watching Finding Bigfoot or something and they get interested. I wasn't really interested in it. My son and I were out fishing. This was after I retired, and we moved from the Houston area up here to the Dallas, Fort Worth area, North Texas. My son and I are hardcore. Well, we were. He's got a family now, and we just don't fish like we used to, but should maybe get back to doing it. I do more squatching. He was with me. He was 15 years old at the time, and about around 9/11, somewhere in there. And we had something start moving towards us along the creek. We'd been out there from about 8 o'clock. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning. And I'm sitting in a folding chair. And in Texas, you can fish with multiple poles. We had about 5 out there. Had stink bait on the bottom for catfish, minnows under a cork for, anything predatory like bass, white bass or anything. And we were throwing lures. So we had a whole smorgasbord for fish. Had a few bites, had a few throwbacks. Well, it was about 2 in the morning. We'd got out there at 8, and we'd fish all night. We loved it. Good father and son time. And I started noticing movement on our side of the creek. Creek was about 60 feet wide. There was a little side slough there, and I was parked in that little apex where both water met. So we had water on 2 sides and, parking behind us. And look, I wasn't concerned. You've got armadillo, which make a lot of noise at night. I don't know if you've ever been around one foraging. They can kick up a lot of racket. Raccoon, fox, coyotes, didn't care because it was across that side slough. Whatever it was would have to cross water to get to us. And I'm an outdoorsman. I don't get spooked too easily. And at some point, I got the very distinct feeling of being watched. Very powerful, very distinct. And my first thought was maybe some old troll or, some person trying to maybe sneak up and rob us or whatever. I mean, fishermen get robbed occasionally. I wasn't too worried. I had a little 380 auto in my fishing pocket. Had a 357 in the truck, and I wasn't too concerned, but I was aware, and it slowly made its way closer. And then at some point I heard this: if you take a branch and you break a good sized branch over your head, the acoustics are different than something heavy stepping on the branch and cracking it. It had that muffled being stepped on, sound, plus the feeling of being watched. My attention clicked up a couple notches. So I didn't say anything to my son. I put my pole in my chair. We had the others in pole holders. And I went over to the truck and I got my Q-beam spotlight out and I clicked it on and I started scanning across that side slough. I want to say back just a little ways was just thick underbrush, not something you could run through. It had briars and branches and stuff. You couldn't even, you probably could walk and twist and limbo through it, but I'm not talking anything you could make your way through quickly. And I wasn't expecting to see anything. I kind of panned one way and came back. I reached a certain point and a facial shape passed through that bright circle of light. And I'm not saying sticking out of the brush, but there was enough gaps in the leaves and branches that it illuminated with that bright light, penetrated a facial shape. Well, I had passed it when it registered in my mind, and then I snapped the light back. And when I did, the face was gone. It wasn't a snout. It wasn't some bull or horse. It had a human-like facial shape. That's the glimpse I saw. And my first thought, well, there's somebody over there, Well, my son, yells, "Dad." He noticed my jerk, my quick move with the light. He said, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm just looking." I didn't want to tell him I thought there was somebody over there, spook my son. So I put the light up. I went back to the chair by the creek, but I was listening. I was aware of that over to the right, just anything. And I want to say not more than 10 minutes, probably not less than 5. I hear a swish and a little bit of movement, and I looked over. All I had was a Coleman lantern on the tailgate of my truck. It wasn't a halogen, It just lit up enough where you could walk and get around things. We had cap lights to bait our hook. You turn on the bright light, you bait the hook, turn the light off, and throw your line back out there. Well, I looked over, and this something arcing out of that brush towards us. And it came down really close. It hit the water in front of us about 5 feet away. Okay. And I'm not talking like a baseball or an orange or, something small. I estimate it to be about cinder block size. Was it a cinder block? It could have been. Big chunk of concrete? Could have been just a big dirt clod, solid dirt clod. And it hit the water and made a splash about like a 50-pound child doing a cannonball off the high dive. I'm talking a poop whoosh, and I'm falling back in the chair and water, big drops of water are splattering on me. And I jump up and my son's already dropped his pole and he's hugging me like a leech, just screaming, "What was that? What was that?" Of course, my mind, I'm thinking, what was that? And I'm watching these big waves fan out. And the first thing comes through my mind, if it had hit either one of us, it'd have busted us up seriously or could have killed us, And so I pull back and I race, forget the little 380 in my shirt pocket. I race over there and I get my 357 out. And I walk over there to that brush line. And where it came from was over 100 feet away from us. Okay. And I yelled out, I said, "That's not funny. I don't know who you are, but if you throw something else at us, I've got a gun and I just may shoot back at you." I warned him. And I wasn't joking. If another big object came out towards me, I would have probably fired at least 2 or 3 rounds in the area where it came from, Well, I was pretty torqued. We were in an open area. We weren't trespassing, minding our own business, and somebody was seriously jacking with us. I was pretty mad, so I figured I'd jack back. I got as close to that slough, water, and I cocked that Model 66 single action, aimed it straight down in the mud. Plug the ear closest to the, I don't know if you've ever fired a 357 without ear protection. It's an ear ringer. It's loud. And so I fired a round off down in the mud just to jack back with them. They didn't know where I was aiming, I guess. If you're a hunter and you jump a big bull elk or a buck deer or a bull or a horse in thick brush, those animals are strong enough. They plow through that. They can make their own trail. And the moment I fired that gun, it sounded like a baby bulldozer right directly on the other side of that slough, taking off, crushing bushes, busting limbs at a high rate of speed. It just plowed through that thick brush and didn't slow down. It faded off, moving at a high rate of speed. And when it got, I want to estimate 100, 150, 200 yards away and kind of going, dimmer and fading out, I looked over at my son. He looked over at me. He said, "Dad, what was that?" I said, "I don't know, but let's go." I was through fishing. I mean, I'm an outdoorsman. I've been that all my life. I understand animals and people. And I can tell you right now, about the only thing in North America that I know of is a bear or a large cat. But the key there is this thing arced out of that brush, okay? A bear can swat, so can a cat. They don't have an articulating shoulder like we do. In order to throw that thing in an arc, you've got to have an opposing digit and an articulating shoulder. And they don't have that, okay? The flip side is, I don't know an NFL quarterback or an Olympian that could throw a cinder block over 100 feet. Just not humanly possible as we know it. And those were the things that really, number one, I knew I didn't imagine it. My son was there and experienced it too. And I talked to people about it for a while. I said, what in the world could have, I know it's not a person that I know of. And, my forensic side, my law enforcement side was really kicking in. I didn't get any answers for a while. I don't know if it was a year and a half, whatever. I never forgot it. Now, I can tell you one thing. I didn't go night fishing out there anymore. No, I didn't go back out there night fishing. Didn't go out back there fishing at all. And at some point, I came across a thread on the internet that said fishermen attacked at night while fishing. Whoa. So I clicked on it. The thread brought me to the BFRO website, Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and a very detailed report. Man, I read it. And the more I read it, the more it dovetailed in with exactly what happened to us, only they had multiple rocks tossed at them. And I didn't think it would go anywhere. I filled out a sighting report, thought, I'll never hear from anybody. 2 or 3 days later, I get a call from a man, and he said he's with the BFRO, an investigator. And he was interested in talking about, my experience. So we started talking. And while I'm talking to him, I can hear public safety radio traffic way in the background. Okay, sounds like a dispatcher and units or whatever. And I just stopped and I said, "Are you in law enforcement?" And he paused for a while. He goes, "Well, yeah." "Why do you ask that?" I said, "I can hear your radio traffic in the background." He said, "Oh, that's dispatch next door. I'm in the break room, on my break when I called you." that immediately added a little bit of credibility to this guy. Because, I mean, there's a lot of people that think anyone believes in Bigfoot or other cryptids or, one brick short of a load or, and it really offends me because I pride myself in my integrity, being truthful. And when somebody doesn't even know you, questions your integrity or demeans you, fellas, I don't have much patience with people like that. Rude people like that, no. That brings out the bad side of me. I'm a nice guy. I believe in courtesy and respect, but there's a point there where I can be pushed that it's a big swing. And I don't know. I don't know why some people think courtesy and respect is a sign of weakness, but they do. But I interacted with this person, went back out to these areas. He was real instrumental in helping me. That's where I had my first visual sighting, was in that waterway system, East Trinity River, Collin County, Texas. It's still there. It's probably only about 12 miles from the house, 12, 15 miles. And there's consistent activity out there. I don't have to go Pacific Northwest or anywhere else. I've had several visual sightings. One of the key things on my first visual sighting out there was I saw it as a light gray or a white Bigfoot. And at that time, that was, 2010, maybe 2010. That's been 15 years ago. The people with me were courteous, but they were a little incredulous. They were polite. They said Bigfoot aren't white. And it later, now it's different. I mean, there's been enough documentation, but back then, and I looked, I didn't get torqued, but I said, look, fellas, I know what you're telling me, but I know what I saw. That subject, well, look at my hair. I mean, I've got gray. We all turn out exactly, with age. They're so much close like us in a lot of ways. They've got a bunch of gray beards out there and gray, that look platinum blonde, almost kind of like what my hair looks like. So anyway, earlier this year, I was flying my drone over that area, and it's near a Corps of Engineer. I'll just leave it like this. It's near a Corps of Engineer structure that you can't fly 400 feet or closer in a drone or you're violating federal law. So I don't do that. But I think I still get a little bit of static when I get close to that area. I'm very careful. I had my communication kind of get messed up. Man, I hit return to home, got my drone out of there. I wasn't breaking any laws. No. But as I was flying it, I saw a white crane in the water fishing, going after minnows. And it wasn't very far after that, I saw another white subject. Well, look, you're looking at a small little monitor. You can't see everywhere at once. I pan and scan, and I do continuous video so I can go back and look at it later if I miss something. And I saw something else white there. I kind of glanced down. I could see the water rippling. And I went ahead and passed on. When I got back to the house and was looking on the computer, it was a white Bigfoot subject, very thick. I mean, same thing. And they were in the water up to their waist. And I have in that same waterway system documented them on several occasions. They wade and forage for freshwater mussels. I found areas where they pile up the freshwater mussels. I have some on a night vision. At the time, I wasn't sure, but it was in January, cold in the 40s, low 40s. And I couldn't see a fisherman out there at night, almost pitch black, without a flashlight wading in water like that. I mean, they would disappear. Wade fishermen don't go under the water and then come back up. I'm reasonably certain it was one out there because I flew my drone there in the daytime later, And there were a lot of footprints coming in and out on the far side of that little inlet there. So, and I even got low enough. I didn't want to get it so low the wind might, put my drone in one of the bushes. I even saw pieces of freshwater mussel. But I've been doing this, 15, 20 years, about 20 years, counting, my early experience. I try to stay in the middle of the road a lot of times, but fellas, there's stuff that have happened out there. I don't understand. I don't have any explanations for it. I've documented them from a dead stop. Okay. This was in Kentucky. We were there, and there were two individuals out there in the graveyard, and one of our members does what a lot of people do, and I'm not dissing him or anything else, but they get excited and they just want to rush closer to these subjects, okay? 99 out of 100 times, that's not a good idea. You let them come to you. You're not going to run them down, chase them down, bait and switch them. They're going to do what they want to do, and I've had the best success letting them come to me, rather than try to trick him or run him down. But he got out there and exactly what I thought would happen. They took off. But I was watching them through my thermal, and I had to go there the next year to get my landmarks straight and get my distances. But the frames per second in my video, my thermal video camera, and the distance, I was able to reasonably calculate from a dead stop. They cleared over 200 feet, averaging 45 miles an hour. Now, you tell me anybody that from a dead stop can average 45 miles an hour in that short of a distance. It looked like a video on fast forward, and I've documented that before. They move at incredible speeds. They do cloak. I've had 2 instances with witnesses with me, not by myself saying I couldn't see the subject. One of them was at the Honolulu Bigfoot Festival. I was up there helping with security, and I'll probably be up there again helping with security. Being retired law enforcement, it's in my wheelhouse. Maybe getting a little on the gray side, but, I can watch and monitor and, let the younger guys, do most of the walking. But I was there with another guy, and Kathy Strain was speaking that year. I think it was 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And about 3 a.m, after everybody went to bed, of course, we grabbed, our bunks and everything, and we're getting some shut-eye. She knocks on the cabin door, and we go to the door, and she says, "Look, fellas, I've got kids knocking on my cabin." Okay. She said, "I need my sleep. I've got a presentation in the morning." So we dress and get outside, and we're looking around. We don't hear or see anything. So we get in his pickup with the windows down, and we turn off his dome light, and we're just listening, and we're just whispering and talking for about a half hour. And sure enough, we hear crackling of leaves behind the cabins, and we go, okay, the kids are coming back. So we get out of the truck real quietly, and we come around. Her cabin was next to ours, maybe 30 feet apart, and we could hear the movement coming up between the cabins, and we kind of peer around the corner. And at that time, that was before they got the newer highway in, there was a street light down on the highway that backlit all of the trees. So anything walking through there would be backlit by that street light down there, and you could see, you could see if somebody was moving through. I look, and I'm seeing the leaves being disturbed with each footstep, fellas, but I do not see a body blocking out the backlight. I mean, I can see the trees in the backlight, but I can watch the progression of the foot. Their steps. They're disturbing the leaves, and my mind's trying to digest. You understand? This was early in my experiences. Well, the guy with me shoots off back and runs into the cabin, and I'm thinking, good, he's going to get his camera, until I hear the cabin door lock. he locked himself. It freaked him out that much. He ran and locked the door. So I'm, oh, great, I'm out here by myself. And I backed off and I jumped in his pickup, you know. But that same area, I've had them cloak on my thermal. Again, very similar. Hear them walking right in front of me. I got 5 newbies with me about ready to mess in their pants. And I'm thinking I'm going to see them on the thermal and get a good video. All I catch is a faint outline of the leading front of them as they move by in front of me about 20 feet. And fellas, how they do that, I do not know. I don't have any logical answers, but that's that and some other things that I stay off the paranormal side because it's hard for people, normal or not normal, that is not a good word for it, common people, that they have a problem believing any of these cryptids exist, okay? And rightfully so. You know, if they were out there, I should have seen them. You know, that doesn't hold water because I've had them within probably 5-10 feet of me. I didn't even know they were there. You know, they're that good, man. They're ninjas of the forest. They use cover and concealment to perfection. They move incredibly fast, and I've got them on thermal where they're right there in the trees about 30 feet away watching our party. And all it looks like is a knot on the tree growing, you know, and then recessing. They side peek. They just put one, they'll watch you with one eye. They don't pull their whole face out. They just, you know, enough to where there's one eye, and then they'll either, you know, I mean, they're good at it. Side peeking, you know. They do have reasoning, cognitive thinking. They're not a dumb animal or ape. The Cherokee have a long history with these subjects. If you study most any of your native nations and you go into any depth, there are recordings. There's cave paintings. There's totem figures that talk about the hairy men of the forest. They have various names for them. The Cherokee have probably 3 or 4 different names. One of them that I find the most interesting isn't published. It's passed down by verbal history through the elders and historians. Larry Shade's one of them that has a lot of good stories. He's a great man, Cherokee Nation. I'm a mixed blood tribal member, card carrying. The Cherokee called them the Uni Udawahi, okay? Loosely translated, forest beings of the lost or forgotten tribe. And I've made numerous expeditions into Kentucky with the BFRO, with the KBRO, Charlie Raymond's group, and a couple, you know, an independent one or two. And I'm never disappointed, man. Kentucky is a squatchy area, and I kind of hold it a little nearer and dearer because that's the land that my ancestors lived in. My Cherokee ancestors lived in for thousands of years before the European settlers and, you know, the U.S. government drove them out for their own good. And by the way, 4,000 died, you know. Government doesn't always do the right things, if you can believe that. Some people think the government can't do anything wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, you both agree. So anyway, I one of the things, and I know enough Cherokee to get in trouble. I'm not fluent. My aunts and uncles were fluent. My grandmother was fluent. But I've always wanted to see if the Cherokee, what they would do is put edible roots and berries out around the perimeter of their village. And in turn, the big guys would watch over them during hunting and gathering endeavors. It was a symbiote relationship, wasn't predatory. And so if that went on for thousands of years, and I've had I could tell you story after story where I've been with mixed blood people, and I'm not saying we're better or smarter, but there seems to be a connection with these individuals sensing native bloodline. That I'll leave it at that. And so I have always wanted to know if they had that relationship for thousands of years. It only makes sense that these subjects would understand Cherokee, because you can read where the Native nations communicated with these subjects. It wasn't like a coyote or a wolf. They traded with them. There's even one story, the slant-eyed giant Saul Kalu, that married, or at least took a Cherokee woman for a wife. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I was in Kentucky. We were out down about a 2-mile dead-end road. Took us a while to get there. It wasn't a place somebody had just happened to come by and hang out. The chances of anybody but us being back there was slim to none. And we made a campfire, did a circle. One of the guys there had brought an acoustical guitar, played some excellent oldies but goodies songs. It was very good, carried a good rhythm, sang real well. Those subjects love that kind of stuff. You just get out there, laugh and hoot. Don't be out there lurking around trying to put camera traps out. Just get in a circle and have a good time. And it's a magnet for them. And sure enough, I can't turn it on or off, fellas, but when I feel them, it's very distinct. And sometimes I know where to look, where to go, where they are. I can't tell you how it happens, but it's served me very well getting stuff, knowing where they are. And so I got that little sense. So I kind of moved away from the group discreetly, using a red game cap light. And I got to where the feeling was coming from. It was down by a river, about 100 yards away from where we were camping on the road. It was a little turnaround, dead end road. And that's where we had our chairs. And look, they weren't out of the cover. There was a line of trees down there, but what I saw was an upright figure showing no clothing lines, walking bipedally or bipedally. I'm not sure which it is. But anyway, walking on 2 feet and tall and upright. Later, that fork in the tree, I went back there the next day. The head level was 8 to 10 feet tall, on this upright figure. Could it have been an NBA basketball player out there butt naked without a flashlight? Not impossible, but highly unlikely, more than likely. I mean, there were documented reports. That's why we were out there in that area, more likely than not, it was one of the big guys. So I'm watching and I could see possibly a second subject, but the foliage was way too thick to make a real positive. I was positive there was one down there at least. And there was a paranormal researcher there that saw me leave, and he came over with his red game cap light on. And he said, "Rick, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching a big guy down by the river." He goes, "Man, I said, "Hey, come here, stand next to me." I gave him my scope. I said, 10 o'clock position from where we are across the field down there where the trees are by the river. So he's quiet for over a minute, doesn't say anything, just looking. And finally I say, "Well, do you see anything?" He said, "Yeah." He's down there looking at us, peeking around a tree, watching us. And fellas, he'd never seen anything like that, that distinct. He's watching it in the scope. It made the whole trip worth it. I could share stuff with you where I've shared with people, and they really appreciate it. And to me, it made the whole trip worth it. The thing was, while we're standing there, something flanks us about 200 feet over on a side creek. We can hear the crackling and subtle stirring. They're very tactical. They'll flank you. They'll get your attention one way while another one sneaks up beside you or behind you. They love that stuff. So anyway, I look over at him, and of course, it's like I said, it's almost dark. I speak to him. I said, "Did you hear that?" He goes, "Yeah, it's over here to the right." I said, "Yeah, it's a lot closer. It's very close." I said, "Watch the big guy tell me if he does anything. Oh, he said, okay. And I look over I say it loud enough for the subject across the field. And this one here, I said, Gata uste, dejato. What is your name? And I said, did he do anything? He said, no, he's just still looking. So I said it a little more emphatically. I said, Gata uste, dejato. Second time I said that, over here is a claw. Big bullfrog deep voice saying no in Cherokee. I don't know if he was no, I don't want to be your, friend of yours or tell you my name, but I got a cognizant response from them. They have reasoning and cognitive thinking. I know I've talked a long time, but
well, Rick, could you talk about what people are able to see on the Bigfoot documentary you're on, A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot? Can you talk about that encounter that you spoke of on there, or the one they played on there?
It was up until that time, I had believed that, it's bits and pieces. I didn't study, the Cherokee history. I wasn't that deep into it. I was like other people. Growing up, I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film when it was first released on local news back in 1967. And fellas, it looked real to me. I remember the hair on the back of my neck standing up. It moved very, very methodically with a lot of fluid motion. It didn't look like some guy in a big bulky suit. I don't know if, try walking in thick sand out on the beach smoothly, okay? Or riverbank. It's you can't glide through thick sand, first of all, without a big gorilla suit on, okay? The way that subject moved looked natural and real, and it still does today. He's Yahoo's making this anyway, I'll get off that. Let me put that soapbox back. And plus, it looks exactly like what I've seen myself. And so I had gone up to a Native American drum making workshop up in Oklahoma, near Lake Eufaula, probably roughly 10, 15, 20 miles west of Porum, Oklahoma. Porum? Yeah, no. Yeah, I think it's Porum. Anyway, Lake Eufaula. And the land was, the lady that hosted it had activity all around her. They came in, she had a gifting area, and it wasn't a big deal. She interacted with them. She's interacted with them most of her life, and she's of native, mixed blood, native heritage. So I went up there. I asked her, I said, can I come up to the drum making workshop? I don't want to make drums, but I want to hang out and see if I can see something on your land. She said, yeah, come on up. So I slept in my camper shell out in front of her house there, as did some other people that brought some trailers and stuff and basically camping. And for 2 days, two or three, it was 2 days, fellas, I lurked around in the woods day and night, wanting, with video cameras and stuff, I wanted to get a video of them. And they ran me ragged. I mean, I'd get a wood knock here, a hoot there. They were probably having fun with me. You're not going to trick these subjects, okay? But back then, I thought if I was real tactical, I got my night vision and get in a nice spot. I mean, I'm in one spot, and I'm in their orchard, and she said, yeah, they come through that part of the woods where it parts there, and they come out and they pick fruit out in that orchard. I said, oh, really? So, late at night when everybody else was asleep, I crept out there into the orchard where I could see the split. Nothing ever happened, but I did get on video one subject warning another one. They said, Nani Hushkane. And basically it was, watch out, he's fishing. It was kind of slang, don't let him catch you, basically, So anyway, I got frustrated. I was frustrated after 2 nights. I drove my pickup down to the end of this logging road, sat on my tailgate, just frustrated. It was right at going dark, and I said out loud, I said, "Look, I just want to see you up close. I want to see you up close, clearly. No little glimpse or anything. I want to see you up close, and I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to see you." Well, about that time, one of the guys there, matter of fact, he was the one that was kind of my mentor. He's in active federal law enforcement. I had a walkie-talkie, and he said, "Rick, I'm coming down the trail now." So I said, "Yeah, I'm down here or down the road." He didn't want to sneak up on me because I was packing my 45, with me. I'm not a pro kill kind of person. I carried one in my career. I'm not going to pull it out and injure or kill somebody, but I will protect. I'll protect myself and other people. It's a tool. It's a tool that I carried on my job, and being honorably retired, I can legally carry it, and I usually have one on me, and nobody's ever going to see it or know I've got it unless I need it, unless something happens. So I was armed, and he didn't want to come sneaking up on me. And I said, "Yeah, I'm right here." So I get up there, or he gets up there, and he goes, "Rick," he goes, "Did you know you had something watching you, someone or something watching you?" I said, "Yeah, I kind of had that feeling." He said, "But when I came down the trail," he said, "it was over to your right." I said, "Yeah, I was still frustrated, hadn't seen one." So the next day, it was lunchtime for their drum making and workshop, and I'd been out in the woods, disappointed again. And we had lunch, and a little bit later, these 3 ladies come in there gushing about they just saw a Bigfoot. And they weren't there to see Bigfoot. They were sitting on a rock down by the creek, and there was a side peeker, he had his head out looking at him, and she looked, and he withdrew his head, and then he stuck it back out. Well, she had her phone, and click, she got a picture of him. So, just hit pretty much his head watching them. And I was pretty frustrated because it wasn't fair. I'm putting in all this time wanting to see one, and these ladies weren't there to see one, and they see one, So they took me down there. I shot some video. I had just a little mini camcorder, and I put a 30X monocular over it. It was a jury rig telephoto. Served me pretty good. It was light. And I got one. I didn't know at the time because I was looking through a little 1x1 LED screen. I could see movement, but it wasn't until I studied it on my computer that I knew what I had. But that was one of my first captures of one of the subjects. That night was the last night. They had a fireside native, a lot of native custom and ceremony. Really, really moving and stirring. I got up about 3/4 of the way through all of that, and they'd been told, or at least the landowner told me, they'll come and watch the ceremony. So I got on a flanking position, and I thought, well, if they come out of that tree line, I'm going to catch them. I'm going to get them on video, night vision. And nothing happened. I'm out there, and I can still hear activity around the fireside. Well, I never saw the landowner go into the woods. Never saw her. I had actually, just to keep people from pranking with me, fellas, I would go into the woods one way, and they had a 40 acre clear cut area, and I'd come through the woods to get to another location. So nobody in that group knew where I was. I didn't want to be pranked or anything, and I took precaution. I'd go for a ways, and then I'd pan and scan with my night vision. They'd have to follow me to know where I'm going, so I'm in a spot where I'm hidden, nobody knows I'm here, and I see a figure coming out of the tree line at about 150 yards. Man, I'm excited, and man, I get the night vision all cranked up, and all of a sudden I realize it's the landowner. She's coming out of the woods over there. And I'm thinking, first, how'd she get over there? I didn't see her. And instead of going back to the group out in the middle of the clear cut, she's coming directly for my location. And again, it's about a 2/3 moon, but in the thick canopy, you can't see. And she walks all the way over right up to me. And I get up from behind the bush. And I asked her, how'd you know I was here? She said, they told me you were here. Okay. Which I thought, wow, that's pretty good. The next thing she asked me, it was like somebody slapping me upside of the face. You got to understand, the night before with nobody around, I say, I just want to see you. Okay. I want to see you up close. She said, they told me you were here. The next thing she said was, do you want to go see them? What are the chances, fellas, of me in one location by myself saying, I want to see you? The next night, somebody that wasn't there comes out, walks over to me. First of all, tells me, finds me, and I'm still kind of, freaking out how she did. I'm not totally buying it at this point, but I'm thinking, man, she's good. They told me you were here. And then second, she goes, do you want to go see them? I mean, that's not chance at all. I mean, I've been in law enforcement enough to know cooperation and matching stuff. It freaked me out. And I said, yeah, sure. So we went back to the group, she told everybody there was probably 25, 30 people there. Don't follow us. It's just going to be me and Rick. I'm taking them to my meeting place with the big guys. And so forest people is the term she used, forest people. So I followed her to the north end of that 40-acre clear cut. There was a wooden fence around the clear cut. The foliage behind it was about 10 feet back. She starts calling them. Okay, we're up there a couple hundred yards away from everybody. She starts calling, and I hear heavy footfall coming out of the lower creek area, coming up that rise. I hear it coming from due east. Then more starts in northeast, and then in the southeast, 3 different directions. And it sounds like a squad or a platoon of big things. I mean, I'm not talking a couple. It sounded big, and it sounded like a bunch of them. And I'm looking for flashlight, light sources. And I can't see a bunch of pranksters walking through the Oklahoma woods at night without a flashlight. Okay. That doesn't make any kind of sense. And as they drew close, it sounded very big and very real. They all stopped about 10 feet back in that thick cover of, foliage. And so at that point, I asked her, I said, can I use my night vision? I had it with me. She had told me, do not use anything that you put up to your face. Don't use a flashlight or a camera. They don't like that. Ask me first. And so I said, can I use my night vision? She said, yeah, sure. I just used it. It was fairly new scope. Fellas, it wouldn't come on. It wouldn't come on. It would not work. Okay. And that was freaking me out. I kept trying it a couple of times. And finally I told her, I said, it doesn't work. She paused for a second and then smiled and said, try it now. And it comes right on. Okay. My first thought is this lady some kind of a witch? It's my night vision. How is she controlling it? There was off balance. I was out of my comfort zone. And then the next thing, I clicked it on. I couldn't see anything. It's not X-ray vision. There's too much foliage there. I put it back up. I said, I can't see anything. And then she just smiled. She says, do you want to go in and see them now? Look, I don't do vulnerable very well. It's never been a, comfort zone for me. If she'd have been a dude, I'd have said, I'm good. I would have, but my testosterone pride wouldn't let me wimp out in front of a woman. Okay. That's the only reason I was going in there, because she wasn't afraid, and I was pretty apprehensive at that point. I was out of my comfort zone. So I followed her down through the gate. We got, I want to say, this narrow trail that we turned left in. We were back there maybe 150 yards. We made a 90-degree turn on a intersecting trail, and maybe 50 feet in there was a 30-foot clear-cut area all the way up to the sky. You could see the stars from in there. It was clear-cut, and that 2/3 moon shone in there fairly well. But when you were under the canopy, when I was following her in, I was on her 6 o'clock because she's their friend. And I mean, there was stuff moving all around me, fella. I was too scared to look. I was just on the back of her head following her. And I didn't send you these pictures. I clicked a picture of one of the subjects. Right, he was grabbing distance away, less than arm's length away. As I passed him, I snapped a picture of him. He's peeking through the foliage at me. Pretty cool picture, you know. So anyway, we get in there, and she's talking to him. I hear the words in my head. Now, people ask me, was it English? Look, fellas, I cannot put it into words. It's an experience-based thing. But the thought, the word, the phrase was, "Why are you carrying a gun?" And I'm sitting there thinking, Rick, you're losing it. You're hearing voices in you're hearing voices in your head. You know, that was the first thought came to me, you know. And I ignored it. And it was like they turned up the squelch. People call it mind speak, picture talk, or whatever. It may be a primal instinct or ability we had as a people when we were tribal. Maybe, you know, back, you know, if you're Scotsman, you know, whatever, you know, we all go back to tribal groups. And I ignored it for a second, and it was like the emphasis was cranked up 10 times, and the question came back again. Why are you carrying a gun? And that second time it went through my head, I knew they were talking to me. I knew I was being communicated to. And I answered, and I don't know, it wasn't just a thought, but I answered them. It's a tool of protection I carry around my close friends and family. I've carried around it, you know, around them. I've never hurt them with it, and I will not hurt you now. And then that's when the voice named the landowner that was with me and said, "Step away from her." Okay. And I looked over at her. I said, "They're telling me to move away from you." She wasn't shocked at all. She just smiled, looked at me, and said, "Well, do what they tell you to do." I turned away from her. She was my security blanket. They were all around in there, and I don't do vulnerable very well, but I turned away and I started walking back to where that trail intersects with what we just, you know, came from. And I stopped right there. I looked down the trail where we came in. I looked to the left, and down there about 50 feet, it was orchestrated. There was a gap and a beam of 2/3 moonlight, and this tall, later I determined to be about 12 feet tall. He was a monster, alpha male is what I'm assuming. Stepped into that moonlight looking at me. And she said, "Do you see him?" I said, "Yeah, he's standing right down the trail." And he was swaying like this, side to side. I said, "He's down the trail and he's swaying." She said, "Sway with him." And so I matched that side to side sway. I don't really know the significance, but when I started swaying with him, I heard the crackling of foliage about 10 feet off to my side. And this, I'd call him younger, maybe a juvenile, because I'm 6 feet and I don't remember looking up or down. I looked mainly level towards him, and he's looking at me. And I'm looking at him, and he's in a 2/3 beam of moonlight, so I didn't have any problem seeing him. And his jaws dropped. He's gawking at me, and my jaw dropped, and we were gawking at each other. I was getting a pure good look at one of these subjects up close. They look like something out of a Steven Spielberg movie, kind of, but they're there alive and breathing. Then a young female, I could tell by her mammary glands, I mean, it was obvious, she steps out behind a tree about the same distance in front of me, about the same height. And in behind her, between the alpha male at about 50 feet, I couldn't see the subject real well, but they looked to be about maybe more like 8 feet, shorter than the big alpha male, but taller than this, I would estimate 6 foot female. And I'm figuring that was mother. I don't know, could never, tell even to this day, but I assume that was mom, a family group. Being a parent and a grandparent, I don't think I was a grandparent back then, but I was a parent. I realized they were letting their young get close to me. There is no way in this life I would let my kids or my grandkids get close to something I didn't trust or I thought was dangerous. At that point, fellas, I got an epiphany. They're trusting me. They know I'm armed, and yet they're letting their young get that close to me. That means a lot. Trust means a whole lot. And all of my apprehension vanished. I started giggling. I was just overwhelmed with this once-in-a-lifetime moment close to these subjects. They were maintaining their position. They weren't threatening, and I didn't smell anything bad, like some people say. I think they can kind of turn that stuff on and off. But then the wild card presented itself. This female is on this trail, and the thick brush on each side. Below that level, I could see movement. And I kind of, glanced down, and I finally noticed a little head toddling around in front of the young female. It was a toddler, okay? I want to say about 3 foot tall, and I'm watching it, and it turns. I could see the little head turn and look at me. It looked up at me, and just like a toddler, it bolted towards me with both of its little arms up. My heart skipped a couple of beats, fellas. Okay, having these things close is very intense, but the thought of a little hairy one latching onto me, I don't know if my heart would have taken it. And, people would say, oh, this guy is way off in left field. I'm going to tell you, this is a standing offer. I'll take $1,000 cash and put it down on the table. If they'll put $1,000 down, they can hire a polygraph examiner. I'll take a polygraph exam. I'm not lying. And if I fail, they just got them $1,000. If I pass, their $1,000 is mine. I'll make it I'll make it any amount, whatever one somebody wants. I'm not lying. It happened. But anyway, fortunately, that young female lunged out and grabbed the little one under the arm and pulled it back, but it got about like a foot or two away from me. And my fear was this. The biggest fear was Big Daddy down there. If that little one didn't know who I was, and then all of a sudden was terrified at something that, wasn't, and it cried out, my fear was that big alpha male would come down there and tear me in two, which he could do very easily. They're massive. He probably was tipping 900 pounds at least. He was huge, just a monster. And when she pulled him back, I looked over at the landowner. I said, look, let's go. I'm through. Let's go, and don't let the little one get, I didn't say that, but as we turned to leave, the big alpha male, who she calls Owl Caller, cocked his head back and gave the most authentic barred owl call that you'd ever hear. The only thing is, it sounded like it was coming out of about 4 or 5 JBL woofer speakers. It wasn't a little 8-pound bird. It rattled the woods there. in that resonance that wasn't an owl, but they do calls super authentically. I've heard them with coyotes and actually get the coyotes stirred up. They do their call and then the coyotes chime in. But yeah, that was a once in a lifetime moment. But what it taught me was these subjects are tribal. They're a nation, a clan, and a tribe of people. Very different from us, but very much like us in many ways. They're not something to be herded, hunted, baited, switched. They need to be respected and left alone. Let them come to you. Don't go to them. Get in there if it doesn't feel right or you don't feel welcome. Probably best that you leave.
That's an amazing, amazing.
Yeah, that's all right. That's
man.
a
Amazing experience.
Great encounter.
Wow.
Yep.
Can you describe what they look like? You've seen the juveniles. You've seen the parents.
They look very, there's warmth in their eyes. They look very human, but more grizzled than us. Obviously, they got more hair. But there's a variety. There's not just a classic look. It's like if you studied us and you put a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader up and then you got a homeless man and put him beside her, they're both human as we know it, but they look incredibly different, incredibly different. One I wouldn't really care to look at very much. And, the other one, a lot more pleasant to look at and study. And it's the same way with them. They've got young ones, old ones, different colored, ones, gray, and white, red, reddish, brown, black, here in Texas, a lot of them are just a darker brown or black, or the white, I've white there. They are, okay. They have reasoning and cognitive thinking. I was with this, two other mixed blood native guys, very experienced. We were out around a campfire near Honeby, and I've never had them throw as much stuff at us as they did there. It went on for the better part of an hour with broken limbs, pieces of bark, and small rocks. And we were never hit, okay? They didn't hit us. It was kind of a game. They'd come in from one direction, and about the time we'd expect more, it would come from another. It was kind of a guess where we are. And one of the guys was collecting all this, okay? And he got up from his chair. There were three in a row, and I was standing behind him with my thermal, and I caught one peeking up in the tree. I called him the fire control officer because it was watching us, and another side peeker. But anyway, it rolls in and the guy gets up and he says, "Can't you guys throw this any closer so I don't have to get up?" Within several seconds after making that statement and before he bent down to pick up the rock, I hear a thud and I look in his folding chair in front of me and there's a quarter-sized rock that they placed. It didn't bounce out of the chair. Number one, extreme accuracy, okay, very coordinated, and they were bantering and joking back with him. That's not a dumb animal. They understood English and they engaged. And that's been my experiences. These things can be funny. They can almost be comical, and they're very mischievous, and they love, it's kind of like, you shooing chickens, or they get a kick out of scaring people, not maliciously to that extent, but they it's like chasing chickens or something. People get out there. I've been out there and they're close and I want to go closer. The people with me, they're ready to run. I've never been threatened yet, fellas. Never felt threatened yet. Never. Now, I had one growl at me one time. I was with my wife, her cousin, and a good friend of mine. I was trying to get close enough for this subject to appear so that my wife and the other people could see him, and he growled, and rightfully so. That was in an area where A certain group in North Texas took a shot at one with a shotgun. They did hit the subject, and there was blood there about a month before this happened in the same general area. And I'll just throw this in there. If anybody's got that big, greedy, I'm going to kill one and get that $1 million bounty, number one, I don't think you're going to get out of the woods alive. Okay. Those subjects can throw rocks at over 100 miles an hour, and you'd never see that fastball upside your head. You can carry a cannon out there. They're going to put you down. And if you kill one, you don't know how many others are out there that you don't know of. To me, it'd be like murder, you know. That was the only reason that I was growled at, and rightfully so. Somebody had been out there and took a shot at one. What would you expect? Another hairless one comes out, you're going to get close and get shot again? No, but at least they were benevolent enough to back off. You know, don't want you here. And I took the hint. Second growl, I said, okay, big boy, I can take a hint. You know, my buddy, he was already 100, 200 yards up the trail. He heard the growl, and he was he was gone. But no.
Well, Rick, we appreciate you coming on the show tonight and talking about all this stuff. We definitely have to get you back on down the road.
Yeah, we do. That was great.
For sure. You probably got a lot more stories
I would love
talk
to.
about.
I would love to. I mean, I've got other
We'd love to have you
stories.
back.
Yeah, we'll get you back on for sure. Definitely.
Okay. Sounds good, fellas. I enjoyed it.
We did too. We did too. Again, thanks for being on and talking about all those awesome experiences and encounters.
I'm going to go watch the movie again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Do you have anything you want to plug real quick?
Besides? Well, if you Google my name, Richard Taylor Bigfoot, it'll take you to the links of my book on Amazon.
Okay. What's that called? What is your book's called?
It's Bigfoot, My Experiences with the Forest People, America's Last Free Tribe.
Okay.
And
very cool.
There's pictures on the cover. They're all mine from videos I've shot of them. 3 different individuals. One was the one in the stick pile in the middle picture was taken in my area of first sight, the day of my first visual sighting. This was my visual sighting was with binoculars, but I got one with the camera here. It's cropped, and you can see him holding a stick up in front of his face. One eye is white because I was using fill-in flash. The one in the upper right corner is the video I sent you from East Texas, Shelby County, Texas. Subject was 528 yards from us. And you'll hear one of his calls in that video I sent you. And the other one in the lower left was Central Texas, Sam Houston National Forest. So,
yeah, if you want to go on our group page, Cryptid Creatures on Facebook, and join, and you can post whatever you want on there.
Yeah,
your books, your Amazon book. Yeah, you can promote whatever you want to. Go for it, man. Yeah, for sure.
Some of my videos too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
The more, the better. So.
Hey, I love sharing, fellas. I've seen them. Honestly, I've documented and seen them enough where if I never see one again, that's fine. But I've got tons of stories, and I've had a blast with people out there. But yeah, I'll go to your website and I'll post a few things. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay,
man.
that sounds great.
We appreciate it again, Rick.
All
right. We'll talk to you soon, brother. Thank you so much.
All right, Rick. Thanks again. Right. Take it easy.
See you. Be safe. God bless you, sir.
No, he's got a lot of stuff going on, man, for sure.
Yeah, he does. That was more than I thought.
I know. We got to bring him back on. He's obviously got more stuff
we're gonna have to
talk about.
Yep.
It's true to his story. He really expresses what he saw and what happened to him. So.
Oh, yeah. Great movie, too. If you guys haven't seen it yet, watch it.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. All right, my friend, with that, let's wrap this up. What do you say? You ready to get out of here?
Yep. See ya.